Three, two, one. Well, welcome to our monthly dose with Dr. Jon Porman. And this is the Warrior's Path to Healing Beyond Medication, Beyond Labels. And as Colonel retired Vince Lindenmeyer, it's more than my honor, Dr. P, to introduce you. A Marine Corps officer always, and now a holistic healer. And for many in the military community, you know, our identity is formed with, being resilient, strong, and our service, and, you know, that suck it up attitude. But too often the road to healing is paved only with prescriptions, lots of Motrin. My kidneys are still recovering. My liver's still recovering from all the Motrin I took, and the labels that don't tell the whole story. So I'm with bated breath. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, ready for this talk. And healing's not just about what's prescribed, but having that purpose, connection, and redefining what thriving looks like. And you're a role model for me. I turned 57 in 16 days. And you're a little bit older brother to me, and I'm thankful for what you're doing by setting the example with road marches, suffering road marches, and the things that you push your body to do. So thanks for healing my son. Thanks for healing me virtually. And I'm so excited about, give us a little time at the end. Let's talk about that legendary healing community that you're starting to bring people together to be able to ask you questions regularly and get help that they need. So without any further ado, let's talk about the Warrior's Path to Healing. How about it?
Awesome. Thank you. Let's just start with this. You're going to be very bold and very to the point, and you are not your diagnosis, and you're not the prescription bottles that you've been given. And too many times when we go to the VA, that's what we end up with is, you know, they do the best they can. So I'm not here to knock them. I'm just saying there's not a lot of tools in their tool bag. There's pretty much maybe one or two, maybe three. And it just seems like we end up with the diagnosis. For some reason, lots of people want to end up with a diagnosis, and then they just get a prescription bottle. So let's start with that. So the thing is this is, you know, I'm not just a doctor that helps people heal. I'm a veteran myself. I'm a warrior myself. And so I see strength, not symptoms. You know, I see warriors, not just patients when people come in to see me. Today, I want you to reclaim the narrative that you're more than your medical chart and that you have a new mission, and your new mission is to heal. Because when you heal yourself, you're healing others. I can tell you in the last 30 years I've been in practice, you know, being a Marine Corps officer, going through the childhood that I had, going through the ups and downs like we all have really gotten me to the point where I'm a phenomenal doctor. And the reason I am is because of the things I've had to persevere through, to go through. And one of the things I've seen as, you know, now a veteran, but also as a doc, is I see people being reduced to a diagnosis or just a list of medications. And people ask me, like, why does that happen? Why do you think that happens? I was talking to April the other day, and she's in the medical field, and, you know, my girlfriend April, and she says, well, why do you think that happens? And I said, I can tell you why, because it's part of our society. It's where we've gone to. We want to know what's wrong. But the problem with that is it's not so much that they want to know what's wrong, is more than that, is they want a label. And then they have this, okay, well, I have XYZ. I have lupus. I have MS. I have Lou Gehrig's disease. I have whatever. I have osteoarthritis. And then, you know, next thing I usually hear is like, you don't understand because, you know, I don't have that affliction. And you're right, I don't. Yet I can understand from a medical perspective that those things can be tempered with something as simple as changing mindset. And there's going to be some things we're going to talk about today that hopefully will help a lot of people. You know, the identity that people have in traditional medicine is their PTSD. That's my diagnosis. I'm a traumatic brain injury patient. I suffer from chronic pain, you know, and on and on. And labels then become our limitations, because once I'm diagnosed, I pretty much always become defined. You know, let me say it again. Once I'm diagnosed, I pretty much and going to always be defined by that diagnosis. And that's where we're going to go wrong. So the other thing is, once you see in a prescription cascade, once you get to one, it leads to another, which leads to another, because then you're going to create all these side effects. Don't be fooled in thinking that medications heal you, because they don't. They cover up symptoms. And I'm not saying that's always a bad thing. I'm just saying is, if you think that's treatment, then you're missing the boat, because that's all that's doing is covering up symptoms. That's not getting to the root cause. You know, I can tell you, I had a veteran come to me, special forces guy that was on, 8 different medications for his PTSD. And we did stuff that was very non-traditional, in the sense of didn't give medications, didn't do talk therapy, got him doing a little bit of exercise, and then started doing some TFT with him, targeted frequency therapy, the stuff I do in my clinic. And it wasn't more than 2.5 months, and he was off every single medication. His thing was, he didn't care about being, if he had to be on it, that was fine. He just wanted to feel better. And if he could get off it, that was fine. Now, if he got off of it, he understood that he could lose his 100% disability, because he had gotten this disability because of the PTSD was so bad. And so, but he didn't care. He said, I just want to live my life. I want to get my life back. And so, he went from, being on 8 medications to, he says to me, I went from being an operator to being operated on, or I was being, just given these prescriptions, and let's see how it goes. And he said the problem was they all created side effects. And I kept telling him that, and no one would listen to him. So, let's stop treating labels, and let's stop treating symptoms, and let's start treating the warrior, and let's treat the underlying cause that's creating that. So, there's times you can do that with people maybe need to stay on certain medications. I don't believe that, because I've never seen that in 30 years, that people need to stay on medications. I will tell you this though, there's research to show that you bring a patient in with opioids, with chronic pain, and you give them opiates. And on that pill, it's a little white pill. It's got a little center, crease in the center to where you can break it in half. And it's got like letters and numbers on it, like PV25, right? So every time I go to take that pill, and they've done this research, they give the person the pill, and it relieves their pain, because it's a narcotic. It's an opiate. So they feel better, and they have this chronic pain, but it feels better. And then they get chronic pain, comes back, they take another pill, feels better. Over a period of time, they now substitute in a sugar pill. It's got the same stamp on it. It's got the same little crease on the center. It looks exactly the same. And between 80, depends on what research you read, 80 to 82% of all those subjects will actually continue to feel and report less pain or no pain after taking the sugar pill. So why is that? That tells me that somewhere between 80 and 82% of those patients didn't need an actual narcotic, right? 18%, maybe 20% did need it, because it didn't reduce their pain when they took the sugar pill. But 80+% actually felt relief in pain, and some had alleviation of their pain. So that tells me that that's a mental part. It doesn't mean that they're crazy, they're psychotic. It just means that the pain is somewhere within their brain, that they can control it with their mind, because they saw the pill and they went, oh yeah, and that helped them. And then they saw the same pill again, looked exactly the same, tasted the same texture, same size, and it gave them relief. So that tells me that's not the body, that's in a issue in the brain. So again, don't let our diagnosis define us, because they shouldn't. So in military training, like we talk about concepts of like adapt, overcome, never quit. Well, those are the same qualities we're going to use if we're trying to heal from a mental, emotional, physical problem. It's going to be that adapt, overcome, and never quit. It's the exact same thing. It's the resilience that helped us to persevere and go through our career, that now we're going to use. And we're not using it to ignore our pain. Resilience isn't about ignoring pain. It's about strategically engaging in that process and being part of the process, not part of the problems. So people have also asked me, like, why have people lost that, they feel like they've lost that drive, or, how do they tap into that warrior spirit again? And it feels like it's buried under symptoms, or stress, or just life in general, or just feels like there's too many years piled on top of them. They're just too far under the pile that they just can't get up. And those are some things we're going to talk about coming up here in a few minutes. Just
Dr.
know
Pete,
this.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Haley, could you? Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. I like raised my hand, but I don't think you saw it.
No.
It's all good. So you kind of started to tap a little bit into it with what you were just saying about resilience and all that. But tell us more about like what those of us that have like lost that drive, who feel like they really don't have a purpose, they don't have a meaning, they don't really feel like that warrior anymore. Like what would you say to them? What would you encourage them to do to like kind of like tap into that warrior spirit again and to find that drive, find more of that resilience that they are very familiar with, you know, to what could seem like a past life then, but like they are still very much that person. So like, what would you say to them? What would you, how would you approach somebody like that?
Well, we were going to get to that in a little bit, but let me just go to that now. And that is that, we all carry trauma. Like whether you want to believe it or not, we all carry trauma. It could be something as simple from childhood or combat or everyday life or all of those, right? But the thing is, trauma is not just emotional. It actually changes us physically. And so there's research to show that trauma shrinks areas of your brain, areas like the hippocampus, which has to do with memory and learning. So you'll see a lot of veterans with PTSD or just people in general under a lot of stress have memory issues, or they say that they can't learn really well. It has issues with our prefrontal cortex. That shrinks. That has to do with decision making and making good decisions. Our amygdala, which has to do with our fear center, that becomes hyperactive. And so the brain, believe it or not, actually shrinks. I'm going to say it again. The brain actually shrinks. So in this case, size does matter. When it comes to the brain, size does matter. And so we need to make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do. And so all those areas can be affected by exercise. And so one of the things about being a warrior is that we're always moving. I mean, there's very rare that, I know we can get stuck behind a desk for periods of time, but then we have to go out and we have to train. We have to either do our PT test. We have to go out and train for the PT. We have to get to the gym. So movement is always really, really good for us. And so what the research shows is that we increase something called BDNF. So BDNF, and it stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And it's a protein. It acts like a fertilizer for your brain cells. And so that effect supports neuroplasticity. And we talked about neuroplasticity in the past, that neuroplasticity helps our brain to repair. And if we've had trauma, we need that repair. We need to go in and prune some of the cells that are dormant, but we also need to go in and form new connections. It helps regenerate like the hippocampus. And what does that have to do with? It helps us reduce anxiety and depression. It supports emotional regulation. It slows down our cognitive decline and also helps in boost our memory. So exercise can be good for all these different things. And I'm not talking about going out and, you've been buried under all this stress, whether it be PTSD, traumatic brain injury, physical trauma, whatever. I'm talking about 15-minute walk a day. Something as simple as 15 minutes walking a day can help us to get our brain on a healing path. And then again, it's not just going to be for the brain, because once I get the brain more in a better cycle to where it's down and it's getting in a better groove instead of in a rut, the body's going to follow. Does that help?
Would you say for those walks that there should kind of be like unplugged as well, like trying to more so tap into yourself, not have your phone attached to you, things like that?
Good point. Well, you can, and the only time I would maybe do it with is if I was listening to music that dropped me down into a meditative state, and that would be like down into an alpha, which is relaxed, or theta. I just got back from a week-long retreat, and that was one of the things that they did is that's great. You can do eyes closed, seated, eyes closed, laying down, and drop into an alpha or a theta state, but can you do it walking? Right? So you drop down in that state, your eyes are closed, and then you open your eyes once you've been there for, a couple of minutes, and then you go off into a walking path and you're listening to music in the background and the guy's, guiding you to the meditation. So you could do it that way as well. It's just, you're going to have to learn to do that. But that's actually the way we want to do it, because, Haley, if you're in a stressful situation, the last thing you're going to, if you're driving a car and it's really stressful, the last thing you want to do is close your eyes, right? Or go, I'm going to pull off the side of the road because you got somewhere to go. So it'd be nice to go, how do I tap back into that warrior spirit? And people think of warrior as like, that means combat, or that means that I'm fighting, I'm a fighter, I'm a UFC fighter. No, it doesn't mean that at all. All I'm talking about in a warrior, when I'm saying, the warrior's path to healing, is you're working your way back. And warrior is more than picking up my hand and punching another human being. It's more about punching through the barriers that I have, that I've either placed in front of myself or other people placed in front of me, is to get to my healing path, to get to the end of the healing path.
Awesome. Thank you.
You know, another thing we can do is, if you feel that way, is connection. Like, we all have really heard about that lately, because the pandemic brought that out. People were isolated and they saw a disconnect with their family, their friends, their teammates, their coworkers. And so it really became apparent then that we are not solo animals, that we need connection with other people. And so, you know, it's like in the military, we need that squad mentality. We need to think of that squad mentality in healing, because you're not that lone warrior. You're a group. You're a squad. And if we can do it that way, then we can push that mission to, instead of it being like a military mission, it can be a purpose-driven mission, or purpose-driven recovery mission. So we're healing ourselves, but then in that, I'm going to help heal my wife because of our relationship. You're going to heal with your kids because you're going to heal that your own self, which heals your relationship with your kids, or gives you a better chance to heal that with your kids, with your mom and dad and your teammates and your coworkers and all that. And so there's just lots of different ways we can go about that. But I would say exercise and connection with other people.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So just so you guys know, you know, the traditional approaches on average is like, you know, 5 pain meds, 2 sleep aids, and 2 mood stabilizers. And that's pretty much a common across the board. Watch any veteran leave that has PTSD from the VA, and you're going to see a grocery bag filled with medications. And again, I'm not saying that no one needs medications. I'm not telling people to get off their medications. What I'm telling them is you really need to talk to your doctor. You need to talk to your doctor, and it become a partnership where you have input into your healthcare, because that's where we go too wrong, is we go, here, you take care of me. And I don't even do that in my clinic. I tell people it's a partnership where we work together, you know, to get you where you want to go. And if it's me making all the decisions, I love my patients, and I know a lot about my patients, but I don't know everything, and I don't know what happened that morning, and I don't know what happened in the last week, and I maybe don't know what happened 20 years ago. And so I need to know from their perspective, did they think that's going to work?
Dr. Porman, can I ask you a question real quick?
Go ahead.
I know you hit on this before about that we all are getting diagnoses, and this, you know, we're kind of defined by the list of medications are and the diagnosis and all that. And one of the things that you mentioned is partly because we're looking for, not all of us necessarily, but looking for kind of labels and that type of a thing. One is that that's not, or maybe it's a question more than a statement, not just veterans that are
Correct.
affected by that. And what are some other reasons that you think that occurs, other than just us wanting for our own diagnosis for our own purposes for whatever reason? Any other reasons that might contribute to that?
I'll tell you the biggest one, and it sounds kind of like, it sounds crazy, but it's insurance driven. You have to have a diagnosis or the doctor can't get reimbursed, right? So whether you're at the VA or your traditional, you know, outside healthcare provider, your primary care provider, they have to have a diagnosis. If they don't have a diagnosis, they can't give you medication. If they don't have a diagnosis, they can't send you out for treatment. If they don't have a diagnosis. But the problem is we get stuck in the diagnosis. The diagnosis is, leave it to the medical doctor. Let them diagnose you. Let your doctor diagnose you, but don't be a part of that. You know, I know a lady that she went into the doctor and she said, listen, this is the game plan. You're never going to give me the diagnosis. She ended up having tumors, and she said, you can't call them, she said, all you can call them are masses, and you can tell me how big they are, but you're not going to tell me that I have cancer. You know, you can tell me what type of cancer I have. You're going to tell me what type of tumors I have. All I want them to be called are masses. I want to know how many there are. Then I want to know where they are, because I'm going to mentally go in and work on those. And she actually healed herself. And the medical doctor was actually like totally on board. But to your point is that it's all about insurance reimbursement. To be flat honest, it's all about insurance reimbursement.
I have a follow-up
crazy.
question for that. It seems like you look at things differently. Like you said, Lou Gehrig's disease, and that would be like magnitude 7 or higher
Yep.
on the Richter scale for some family or a cancer. It seems like for you, like you take diagnosis into consideration, but you kind of like you don't have them like affect you as much as the care provider. Like if we get any type of diagnosis, should we not give it that much importance? Or I mean, we should understand what it is, or we should know how many masses and what location of the body. But do people put too much importance on their diagnosis and their what that means for them as far as their end state?
100%, because
Wow.
100%, because patients think that if I have so there's research to show if I have stage 4 cancer, but I have a great network, I have faith, I feel like there's a purpose in my life, and I feel that I have a chance to survive. The odds of surviving are higher in that case. Stage 4 means it's not just in that one area, so it's lung cancer that's spread everywhere, right? It's metastasized to the rest of your body, or it's liver cancer, it's spread to the rest of your body. So I have a greater chance of surviving that than if I have a stage 1 cancer, which means it's in situ, which means it's only in the organ that they found it in, whether it be bone cancer or lung cancer or brain cancer or whatever it is. You have a way better chance of dying with a stage 1 than you do stage 4 if you don't have a degree of faith, you don't have a degree of connection, you don't have a degree of purpose. Like you don't believe that you have the chance to heal. Like if you believe in the diagnosis, that's just down the path of not healing, down the path of death, you're more likely for that to happen. I'm telling you, man, your faith in yourself, your faith in a higher power is so magnificent, because I know people that were given a Lou Gehrig's disease. I was at a retreat where a gal got up on stage and she had Lou Gehrig's disease. She had multiple sclerosis. She was bedridden for 3 years. During COVID, or I should take it back, even after COVID, she had to wear a mask. And so you'd think like, oh, well, it's because she had nothing to do with COVID. She said if your breath came across her and she inhaled it, she would break into hives throughout her entire body. And she was a single mom. She was homeless for a while, like all these different things. She read a book about meditation, about how she could heal herself if she could tap into the higher source, God, the universe, the unified field, like whatever terms you want to use. I use God, right? So whatever term you want to use, she tapped into that source, and she saw little by little, she got a little better. And then a couple of years later, she's up on stage and she's talking to people how she ran a 50K, 30 miles 2 days ago. And you're like, and she'd also run a 100-mile race. And you're like, that's insane, because Lou Gehrig's disease, if you live 3 to 5 years, you're lucky. I mean, it's a downhill slippery slope with like organic beef tallow on the side, and you ain't getting back up, man. I don't care what you do. In the traditional medical model, there is absolutely nothing you can do for Lou Gehrig's. That is 100% a death sentence. And yet this gal with all these other diagnoses are all completely gone. She has, 100% health. She can eat whatever she wants. She doesn't have food sensitivities anymore, and she did it all with her brain.
Well, you've spoken about prescriptions and really steering away from medication, and now we've talked about diagnosis and really lowering the importance of diagnosis. Like, what does real living and real health look like as far as like a daily routine? You're touching on a few of these points about spirituality and eating right. What do we do to heal, and to, what does real life look like in this new holistic framework?
Well, I think there's 3 pillars, and that's the physical sovereignty, mental clarity, and spiritual purpose. And so when you can put those 3 things together, that's when I think that you're going to find that life is worth living for. And don't take this the wrong way. Anybody that's going to listen to this or listen to this in the future, don't take this the wrong way, but it's easy to die. Absolutely 100% easy to die. You could kill yourself. You could walk out in front of a traffic. You can get a disease like Lou Gehrig's and you're just going to die. You know what's hard is really living. And I don't mean surviving, because if you have Lou Gehrig's disease, first you have to survive before you can thrive, or before I can actually live life. What I tell people a lot of times is I have a sign in my office that says, stop existing in a life. And when I say life, it's LIE-F. Sounds the same, but it's a lie, right? And so it's a play on words. It's a little bit cute, yet it's very true. Most people exist in a life rather than thriving in life or really living life. And that's because, they're missing one of those components. They're not physically strong, they're not mentally strong, and they're not spiritually strong. And so if I can get those three things, think about that. Again, my three pillars of a warrior and thriving is the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, because they're going to go hand in hand. The more physically active I am, the more I'm going to think about positive. I'm more likely to think about positive thoughts. The more positive thoughts I have, the more likely I'm able to get out of bed and go for a walk in the morning. The more positive thoughts I have, the more I can think of a higher power and think like, okay, God's got my back. The more I focus on God and say he's got my back, she's got my back, the more I can be positive, like, oh, well, life happens for me, not to me. And then, oh, hey, you know what? Like maybe I can get over this ankle injury, low back injury, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, whatever it is, lupus, whatever it is, and I can actually start feeling better. But they all feed upon one another. It's like the chicken or the egg. It's like they're both, it's not one or the other. It's not, you have to do all of them at the same time. And maybe it's only a little bit, but it's that juggling act. I've talked about that before where, life is about juggling, where you have like maybe 5 or 6 balls at a time that you're juggling, but at any one time, you're really only focused on two, the two that are in your hands, and the others are suspended. And then in a very short period of time, it's going to be another 2 different balls, and that's going to be another 2. And that's kind of the way life is. Too many people, sometimes they do get stuck on the physical, but that's all they work on, the physical, not the mental, not the spiritual. Or they do the spiritual and they go, oh, well, I believe in God and they have great faith, but they eat like crap. They don't exercise. Their thinking's negative, and they don't do anything that gets them out of it because they think God's going to save them. And God says, you have free will. Go work on these things yourself. So again, it's about the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. And if we put those three together, that's really where you can thrive in life, and you can overcome any obstacle and turn it into an opportunity. Just like I was saying, that one lady that was on stage, like she definitely took all the physical obstacles she had, and then even financial obstacles, and she really started to fall back under her faith because she had to, because she said, I have nothing else left to do. And she also said, I have to live for my child. So for her, there was that little bit of incentive, or not a little, but there was that incentive that it wasn't even for her to begin with. And she also realized that it wasn't about healing as much as it was about changing, that she had to change because her thought process, her lack of physical activity, her food choices, her not falling back under her faith, like all the things she had gotten away from or got her where she was, and the way she was going to get out of there was, I think that was Einstein had that the thoughts that got you where you are now are not the thoughts that are going to get you out of where you are. So you have to have a different thought process. If you don't have a different, you're going to end up in the same boat.
Dr. P, how much are you waging war on scarcity mentality, and how many times are you with your patients and you're the chief encouragement officer? Like, how are you trying to get patients to live abundantly?
Well, Vince, you would know because you're starting an organization that I'm part of. And so, when you're talking about consciousness, and we're talking very, very high consciousness, you can't have the mentality that life happens to me. You can't have the mentality that there's not enough money. You can't have you can't have the mentality that abundance is only for certain people. Or, man, I tell you what, during COVID alone, I fought that a whole lot, because people were like, yeah, I said, listen, I got COVID. I was in bed for 8 days because I didn't take care of myself. I didn't do the things I needed to do. I tore my meniscus in my knee. I didn't get good sleep, which lowered my resistance. I ended up getting a sinus infection, which lowered my resistance anymore. I got COVID and I got sick. I said the difference was and then I was in bed in 8 days, 9 days after that. So from the day I first got sick to 17 days later, I was back to running on the treadmill again. And so why is that? Because I built up this emotional, physical, spiritual bank account that I've been depositing into. And so it's no different that in someone that's trying to overcome a healing crisis, that they have to keep depositing. But the thing is, when's it going to happen? I don't know. Like, look at somebody like Tom Brady. I was just watching something on him the other day, and he's the last draft pick by the Patriots. Everything that's written about him is negative. Like, he's slow. He doesn't release the ball. He's this. He gets hit a lot. He, is very fragile, like all these different things. And the guy's become the GOAT, man, one of the greatest of all time at his position, and maybe of all of football. And it wasn't because he was great right off the bat. He just kept working and working and working and working. And then what he do? He didn't just have the mindset like, I'm going to be great. He knew for me to be great, I've got to surround myself with other people. So Vince, that's what you're creating in your organization. The mindset is going to be, like I tell my high school kids, your attitude is, and it's a quote I got from somebody else, obviously, but your attitude is contagious. So is yours worth catching? Because your attitude is either going to be positive, like, oh man, this is working for me, or it's going to be negative, like, oh man, this is terrible. This is so hard. And life can be hard, but it's going to be what we're going to make of that, right? And so I deal with that every day. Less the more I see people, but the first visit's always like, yeah, it's really tough. And I go, well, you can talk like that and you can feel like that, but you're sending all these negative chemicals to your body. And if you want to heal, you can't do that. And, I had a kid come in, he had a stress fracture in his foot 2 weeks ago, and his doctor wanted to put a screw in his bone. I have no idea why. Don't even ask me that. That's the most crazy thing I've ever heard in practice, probably in 30 years. And I said to him, but here's the biggest thing. If your mindset is you're not going to have a chance to heal and you're still trying to go play college football, but you need film and they're telling you you're going to be out for at least 5 or 6 games, you're only going to have like 3 or 4 games to play in, and maybe 2 or 3 games you're going to play well because you're going to be out for that long, well, then good luck. Or you can go through and you can have that mental rehearsal of you're practicing every day. You look down, you see your shoes on, you look down, your feet look great, your foot doesn't, you know what I mean? Your foot feels fine, 100%. You're running, you're doing all your routes. It's a mental warrior's mindset that I can do whatever I want to do. I just know it might take time. And if I give up, that could be like the book 3 Feet from Gold, where there's a book, it's a true story, where a guy was mining, he's mining, and he decided to sell his rights to the mine because he wasn't finding gold, and he sold it to the next guy, pennies on the dollar, and the guy decided he didn't know anything about mining either, like this guy didn't, but he went out and got a geologist to figure out was there any gold there, and found out that where the other guy had stopped drilling, he literally was 3 feet from gold. And so he paid this geologist to tell him, you're right there, just keep digging, and the guy ended up finding gold and ended up being worth millions and millions of dollars. But the other guy stopped and he was only 3 feet from gold. And so, that's where a lot of people will go. Like, they get to me a lot of times at the end where like, you're my last resort. And I'm like, well, no, I shouldn't be your last resort, because I might not help you, but your mindset should be, I know there's someone in this world somewhere that can help me with the problems that I have. And if I have that mindset, then I know that I'm going to attract that person, because I know there's someone out there that can heal me. And if it's Dr. Porman, great. If it's not, I'll keep going, because I'm going to find somebody that's going to help me. What's really interesting with that too is how people call me and then cancel because they're feeling better. And then they call to make an appointment because now they're starting to hurt again. And then they cancel. And the third time I'll go, listen, you're paying me today, because if you don't show up, the reason you're getting better, and I know that, is your body knows you're coming to see someone that's going to help me. So your body eases off. It gets off the gas.
Yeah.
Putting on the brake. Happens all the time. And so the guy comes in, this is a true story. Guy comes in the third visit, third time, he canceled twice, comes in the third time, and he says, well, I actually was feeling better, but because I paid for it, I thought I'd come in, and I said, dude, that happens every time. You're not the first person, you're not the last person. It happens all the time. I know that happens in medicine, like with medical doctors, but I know that happens with me all the time. And then people will come in saying, I don't even know why I'm here. And then I'll find a bunch of stuff and they're like, holy cow, like, this is crazy, the stuff you found. And then, they'll leave and go, I feel great. And I'm like, that's the way it's supposed to work. So.
Well, we're talking about, my community, but we're talking about a community for legendary healing, a legendary healing community where, that community could mean the difference of healing from stage 4 cancer or Lou Gehrig's, or even suicidal ideation for veterans. So
right.
About forming a legendary healing community where purpose, connection, just redefining what thriving looks like, encouraging one another, and then even having access to your expertise. So like, where do you see, like, virtually, and even during COVID and even beyond COVID, like a virtual legendary healing community, where do you see as the potential of that? Like, could you describe what this community could look like?
Well, it's going to be driven by, just like you said, by the community. And I know what people are looking for because they told me, and that is that they want to have someone they can have access to. They want to have someone that's going to have an opinion, but it's going to be based upon the information that's out there. So, you know, everyone's doing the best they can. I really, truly want to believe that. I don't want to think that people are not trying to do the best they can, but a lot of people are basing their information on data from 20 years ago. Like, so for instance, someone's using an ultrasound machine, you know, they're taking the time to use an ultrasound machine. And I know they're doing the best they can because they're actually using something. They're not just saying, oh, live with the pain. They're trying an ultrasound machine, but that's based upon data from 30 years ago. They're not using a laser or a sound wave machine. The thing about the community is it's going to be driven by the community. And what they're telling me is that what they want is they want to have access to someone like me that walks the talk, not just talks it, but that walks it, you know, that is engaged in activity, engaged in exercise, engaged in working with my mindset on a daily basis. Someone that works with the emotional, someone that works with the spiritual. And so, and again, it doesn't mean that I'm perfect because I'm not. It just means that I'm on that journey with them. And so, but there has to be somebody at the front. And so I'm more than happy to lead that charge, being at the front of, you know, a legendary healing movement. And so that's going to look what they want it to look like, but also there's some things I want it to look like. And that is that I want there to be accountability, that you need to have accountability partners in life, whether it be your spouse, your best friend, a coworker, a teammate, whatever it is, because that's what keeps us going. Because that's, again, that's connection. And so if we can keep that connection and that accountability, that really helps. The next one is, well, how do we decipher through some of the literature that's out there? Because let's face it, man, you can find any research article you want to prove your point. You just can, because there's a saying that says figures can lie and liars can figure. And so it's really, really true. You can find any research article out there to prove your point. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily true or that it's fact. It just means that you can find an article that proves that. So you got to go, what's my basis? What am I looking for? So most people, when I talk to them, they go, well, you make common sense. And that's the key right there. It's not that I use big medical jargon. It's not that I've read all the literature. It's not, it's can I pare it down to where someone in 6th or 7th grade can understand this? Because that's the way I think. Dude, I tell people I'm 12 years old because I act like I'm 12, and that's not going to change. And you know, I'm not going to apologize for that because I love that fact about me. Yet the things I teach, I try to teach it to where someone 12 years old could get it. And so I try to take it to something that's somewhat complicated, but make it very simple. Because I tell people the body's the same way. It's got a lot of things that it can do. They're very, very complicated, but the way to keep it healthy is actually really simple. And it's about those pillars. And then within those pillars, make things very, very basic. Don't tell people, oh, you got to take these 35 supplements, or you got to do 5 hours of meditation a day, or, you know, you got to walk, 16 miles a day. Like, that's lunacy, because or you got to stretch an hour a day. I know people that tell people you got to stretch an hour a day per body part. I'm like, there is no way I'm going to do that. So there's no way I'm going to teach my patients that, because that's not sustainable. So if you're looking for something that's going to take you to another level, it's going to be joining our community, because I'll be learning at the same time. That's the cool part. There'll be people that have read an article, taken a supplement, done something that I haven't done before, read something I haven't read before, and we're going to be able to now combine this and put this all together. That being said, you still have to have somebody at the front. As you know, Vince, it doesn't mean that it's a tyranny, right? And that I'm going to lead with an iron fist, just like you never did. That's why you're a great leader. You never, and I work with you on a weekly basis, and you never tell me what I have to do. You give me advice, and I look at it and I go, yeah, that sounds great. I want my patients to do the same thing, and I want people in this community to do the same thing. I'm going, what he said makes sense. I think I'll try that. Great, that's all I'm asking. If it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Try something else that works for you. Just keep trying and trying until you find what works for you.
Well, we have a lot of demographics that the Legendary Healing Foundation supports, and it is a nonprofit. You have Division I athletes, you have first responders, emergency responders, veterans, and the underserved, and really trying to get funding to really level the playing field. But when people come into you with a label of who they are, like, oh, I'm a Division I athlete, or oh, I'm a veteran, I'm a first responder, I'm a woman over 50 going into menopause, I'm a over 55 person, and apparently I have to go live in an over 55 village now. Like, we all come to doctors with labels, and really, do you just treat us all the same? Like, should we all just be Division I athletes? I don't know. Can you kind of address the labels that we put on ourselves?
Well, I'll just give you this challenge. You know, like when you go before you go to bed tonight, this will be for anybody that listens to this now or in the future. You know, and let's say that you're a Division I athlete, or the exact opposite, you're a Lou Gehrig's patient, right? Look in the mirror and tell me that's what you see, because that's not what you see. That's a label. And you know, you can have a positive label like a Division I athlete, and I can use that for good, or it can be negative because I can think that I'm better than everybody else and people should bow down to me, and that kind of thing. I could look at myself as being a Lou Gehrig's patient and going, man, that guy's gonna die. Or I can look at and see something different than that. I've got to be able to look past what I see in the mirror, because if I can't look past what I see in the mirror, I'm never going to get to the true self. You know, whether I'm giving myself the label of Division I athlete, someone else is giving me that. Someone's giving me I'm a Division III athlete. Someone's giving me I'm just a stay-at-home mom. You can stick with those labels. I mean, that's up to you. All I'm saying is, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Do you see a warrior? Do you see someone that's willing to put in the time and the effort to get where they want to go in this life, and also surround themselves with people that will help them to get where they want to go in this life? Or are they going to be defined by what other people place a label on them? Because I'll just tell you, man, you're going to have people put labels on you day after day after day, every single day. And you could do that, yet that's not very honoring to the warrior spirit that you have inside of you. So, you know, tonight you look in the mirror and you go, that's not who I am, that label, whatever that label is. And you look deeper than that, and you look deep into those eyes and you say, what do I really see in there? And then you wake up the next morning and you take the first step out of that freaking bed like you're that warrior that we talked about, not what someone else told you. You're not, you know, someone that's missing an arm or a leg. You still have a leg. You're way deeper than that. So if you look at it from the perspective of who are you deep inside your core, and you remember that, you know, it's like, Vince, you told me once before, like you said something about you would tell your soldiers or something like that, you know, remember this, that you survived 100% of your worst days. And that's a great quote, because, and I've remembered that since you've given that to me, because it's true. You survived 100% of your worst days. Right? Because you're looking in the mirror. Now your feet are on the floor. So let's get going, man. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and figure out what it is you want from this life, because no one else is feeling sorry for you. No one else is at the edge of the bed helping you get out of that bed. So you get out, put your feet on the floor, put one step in front of the other, and just live the life that you are meant to live, which is, again, starting in the mirror and seeing yourself for your true self, not for some label that you have. Your face could be disfigured, and that's not who you are. Right? You could be 7 foot tall, but you're not 7 foot tall, because, you know, when you die, your body's still here, but you're not here. So you're obviously not that body. That's just the meat suit that you're in. So you got to figure out at a deeper level, who are you and who do you really want to show up as in this lifetime?
Well, you know, one of your goals is for the nonprofit, the Legendary Healing Foundation, is to touch 1 million lives. And you're probably going to do that in 5 years. And with videos like this, with your face-to-face patients and clients in Tempe, Arizona, those that travel from afar to come see you, and then your traveling appointments, you're going to Florida soon. So you're getting around, you're speaking, and you will have that 1 million impressions within a few years, and you'll touch 1 million direct lives within 5 years. So I believe the Legendary Healing community is part of that. And if there aren't any other questions, I think we could wrap this up. Any final comments or questions?
I have one final question. So
Yes.
you kind of touched on those pillars earlier with the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. For somebody that maybe does not have any experience with any of that, like they have no touch, they have no physical routine, they're very sedentary, their mental health's not great, they're not really sure where they stand in a spiritual sense. where would you tell somebody to start with all of those things? Like if they're at, level 0, nothing going on, what would you tell them to be that first step to take to be moving in that right direction?
What's interesting is I'll ask my patients, so where are you on if you had to rate from 1 to 10, and no one's ever said 0, because 0 to me would be death. And so I'm not saying anything against what you just said. I'm just going to tell you, what they'll tell me? 2 or 3. And I'll go, or they'll say like 4 or 5, but no one ever says like 8 or 9 or 10 or 8, but they never say 0. And I'll say, well, if it's a 2 or a 3, why is it that high? What? I go, think about that. Why is it even that high? And now they have to build a case for why it's a 2 or a 3. And as they start to talk, guess what? It ain't a 2 or a 3. It's a 5 or a 6. Instead of being a 5 or 6, it's actually a 6 or a 7. That we want to think of ourselves as so much less than, because there's so many people in society that want to beat us down spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, that they see themselves as less than. And so a couple of things. One would be look at that and say, where would you rate yourself? And then go, why would you rate yourself so high? And then you have to go ahead and defend that. And when you can defend that, which we all can, right, to some degree, then you realize you're not as bad as you think you are. Second, got to go back to that mentality of I've got to surround myself with people that are of like mindset. If I hang around people that are negative, well, I'll give you an example. My grandma, after my grandpa passed away, my grandma was put into a living facility where she was put into a house, and they thought this was going to be a great idea because her father had built this house, and so she was in this house. The problem was all the patients in that house, the older women that were in this house, they all had dementia and Alzheimer's. Guess what my grandma ended up having? Dementia and Alzheimer's. But the thing was, you would go there, this is a true story, you would go there, she'd be rocking this baby, and she'd be talking to this baby. And then after about 30 minutes of me being there, every single time, my grandma would come out of this, and we could talk about stuff that happened 5 minutes ago, 5 days ago, 5 years ago, 50 years ago. She came back because she had someone to interact with. She became more like me because I'm positive, upbeat. I'm like tickling my grandma. I'm telling her jokes. I'm making her walk. I'm like, come on, you're not an old lady. Let's go. And I'm just being really positive with her. And my sister and I take her out. We go get her something to eat. My grandma's back, man. We go back like 2 months later, 3 months later, whatever it was. Whenever I could get leave again, I go back. And my grandma's right back to the same person that she was in that home before. And we'd have to get her out of that cycle again. And instead of seeing her as broken, right, I saw her as my grandma, because that's not my grandma. My grandma's the one that's bright and positive and taught me about nutrition and took me to and did fun things with me and all those kind of things. And so that's how I treat her. You will no different. So if it's a warrior that can't feel like they can't get out of bed, they need someone that's willing to come over to their house and going, get out of bed, let's go, man, let's go for a walk. Whether it be a family member, whether it be whether it be that, or whether it be a coworker or just a really good friend, because community is huge. So you got the accountability, you got someone that cares for you, you got someone that's not going to go, oh, how's your knee feel? Oh yeah, your knee hurts. Yeah, no, that's a bunch of crap. Because remember, we talked about it. 80% of all people that take opiates that feel better, they would feel better if they just thought that what they were taking was actually helping them. They just want something they think is going to help them. So it's a mental part. So if I hang out with people that are positive, I hang out with people that see the best in me, I hang out with people that won't feel sorry for me, I hang out with people that will hold me accountable, I do all those kind of things, that's going to start to snowball. And then I have someone go through my house, or I hire someone, or a family member brings somebody in and says, we're going to give her all the crap in your house. You can eat whatever you want, just not that crap. And so they go and they bring in new food and they get rid of all the crap, or they take them to the store and they teach them how to shop. There's so many ways you can go. My whole thing is this: you got to put one foot in front of the other. And I don't know what that looks like. It might be an inch. It might be a foot, that step. You might take 2 steps. You might take 1 step. You might take 10. All I know is every day you got to keep trying and trying and trying. Because again, remember, it's easy to die. And I'm not taking that lightly, and don't take that the wrong way, but it's really hard to live in this life. It's really easy to die. And so the only way to do that is with the things we talked about earlier today. And if we can do that, I think you can get out of this. But you got to get out of your own way. That's the biggest thing when it comes to my patients. They get in their own way, their own path to healing. They're throwing there's no one else throwing stones on their healing path. They can't go barefoot. There's a bunch of glass on there because they're throwing it themselves. Oh, I'm never going to be, I'm not good enough, and I'm not smart enough, and I'm too heavy, and I'm this and I'm that, and everything, all these labels again that people are giving us that they buy into, instead of going, looking in the mirror and going, man, that's not what I see. Deep inside, not exteriorly, but deep inside, that's not what I see. I see someone really beautiful. I see a warrior. I see someone that deserves my love, my attention, other people's love and attention, and going it that way.
What do you say to somebody who's actually taken the first step or first couple of steps, but then may have a bad day or they fall back? How would you approach that?
Yeah. Hello. It's called life. Tell them, thank you. It means you're still alive. If I had a bad day, it means okay. So the other thing is this: if I had a bad day, that means someone gave me a bad day. I look at it as if I quote unquote had a bad day, I created a bad day. And what I mean by that is I didn't look at I wasn't grateful for the beautiful things in my life. I'm focusing on the one patient that was kind of snarky with me that day versus the 17 patients that absolutely adore me. I'm going to give my energy to the people that deserve it. And that's going to be me. And that's going to be the beautiful people in my life, the people that uplift me, not the ones that go, oh, you think you know everything, or the ones go, I don't really think I'm getting any better. Oh, okay. Well, your pain level is, 8 out of 10, and now it's 6 out of 10. And it's not constant anymore. It's only like 4 times a day. You just have to figure out, like, who do you want to be in this life versus, and who do I want to surround myself? Because who I want to be is who I'm going to surround myself with. If I want to be super healthy, I should be around super healthy people. If I want to get to the gym, I should be around people that go to the gym. If I want to be sick and diseased, I'm going to hang out with people that are sick and diseased. And the other thing is, like you just said, you're going to have bad days, man. This is not a complete rise to the top. It's a path where I go up and then I'll hit downs. It's the stock market. It's up and then it's down, and then it's up and it's down. But over time, what's it do? It always traverses up, always goes up over time. Any point in time that over a period of time, you look at it, it's been low and it's always gotten higher. And then it's here, but then it's getting higher, and then it's always going higher.
Very powerful, very, very good mic drop there. So
Oh, good. Thank you.
Appreciate the talk today, and I'm ready to run through a brick wall.
Now you're talking.
I think the legendary healing community, you're going to have all kinds of categories like eating better, getting out and exercising, challenges, maybe daily challenges, weekly challenges. And that's what we need. We need community. We need, like you've told me, we're only as good as our 5 people we hang out with, right? So I appreciate this talk. So, what's next? We're going to have another talk each month, and we'll get that out to folks. Go ahead, Ricky. What's next? Do we have a date for the next talk, or I thought you might have that?
No, September the 4th is the next date. We don't have a topic yet.
Great. Well, social media comments and social media could definitely get us another topic. But September will be here, and we'll be looking at closing summer out and Labor Day weekend and football season. So looking forward to more comments about Division I football, Division I volleyball, and all those athletes you support there. So thanks for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.